So Emma, can we just talk a little bit about the work that you're doing here, sort of providing immediate relief and keeping people alive?
Yep, certainly. If humanitarian aid organisations were able to be here, they'd be doing it. They are not, because their mandate doesn't stretch to cover that. As France is a country in which can and should be dealing with and processing and putting through legal due process for all the citizens of the camp. They are not, and therefore there has been a gap created in which volunteers, initially from the UK, but also there have been French charities involved from the very beginning, have stepped in and have fed these people and clothed them and sheltered them. Had these people not been here, it's very likely that more people would be dead.
Yeah.
The French government could shut us down. They have not, and I would believe that that's because if they did, people would be dying and there would be more of an outrage, and we are acting as a band-aid, which is a problem, but would be more of a problem if we weren't doing it and people were dying.
Yeah. Emma, could you just say a little bit about who you are and the research work that you've done?
Certainly. My name is Shas Sheehan. I am the donations coordinator for L'Auberge and Help Refugees in Calais. I have a Masters in Humanitarianism and Conflict Response, and I find this situation incredible and fascinating and outrageous, and it simply shouldn't exist, but it does, and we're all doing what we can to support the people who are here and give them as much dignity as is possible in this situation.
Excellent, great. Thanks, Isabel. Sorry for calling you Emma.
No problem.
Tanya,
Hello.
just say a little bit about yourself and the organisation you're with and your history here with the camps.
I'm Tanya Friedman.
Steve?
I got involved with setting up Help Refugees last summer. We were just a group of people who wanted to bring donations to Calais. When we tried to bring them over and found there was no one to bring them to, there were no big aid organisations operating here. There were just a few small French charities. We realised we had to do something. We couldn't simply walk away. So we got involved at relatively early stages in the aid efforts here to establish a warehouse, to establish infrastructure, distribution networks, to work with long-term volunteers, to ensure that the right goods got to the right people in the camps. And we've continued, and we're entirely funded by crowdfunding and public donations, and we get the money immediately to where it's needed most.
Thanks, Emma. Steve, do you want to say a little bit about what your role is here?
Yeah, sure. I co-started the Refugee Community Kitchen in October last year. The idea was to come out here and build a kitchen in the camp and leave it with some of the refugee groups, but as soon as we got here for our recce, we soon realised that actually that's only going to service a small amount of people within the camp, and actually would probably end up not being managed properly because no one wants to stay in the camp. Everyone's trying to leave. So we decided, and we walked around and we saw all the kitchens that were there, and we realised that they needed a support network. So we came here to the Auberge and we asked them about setting up a kitchen and food set up here, and they said yep, as long as you're self-sufficient. And so we did. We came here, and I was fully planning on coming here for a month and then leaving and putting my feet up somewhere warm, and as you can see I'm still here 4 months later. But essentially we send food into both Dunkirk and Calais camps, up to 2,500 meals a day, sometimes more, but our efforts were taken away from hot food and put into setting up community kitchens, because we soon realised when we were sending the food in that actually people want to eat their own style of food. So cooking for 7 nations is quite hard in one meal. So we ended up setting up kitchens with Calais kitchens, and we saw our hot food distribution go down loads until the eviction. And now the eviction's trashed all the kitchens, so our hot food distribution's gone right up again. So we're back up to 2,500 plus.
I'm glad you've mentioned the demolition. Isabel, you said something to me that's quite interesting about the initial despair of the volunteers, that all the work that they put in has been destroyed in such a short space of time. But you gave me a very interesting perspective on it.
It was from another one of our long-term volunteers who'd been away for about a month and had come back, and he had been part of the build team through the majority of their build time here, and he had been saying, I asked him how he felt coming back and having to be one of the members who was pulling apart these shelters with his bare hands because he was going to start a fire or spread a fire or anything else at all. And his reaction was yes, it is sad, but what you've got to remember is that each of these shelters has given a recourse to comfort or an element of comfort for people for however many months it's been that they've had it. The project was called A Home for Winter, and it has given them exactly that, a home for winter. The situation is now far harder than it was before, with not enough shelters for people and people leaving, and the northern half of the camp is incredibly crammed in. We've moved as many shelters as possible in the last couple of weeks. It's not possible to move them all. Many have been destroyed. Thousands must have been destroyed during the evictions. But we've completed the goal of the programme, which was to shelter people for winter. And even if you are tearing apart something you helped to build, it's run its course, it's served its purpose. And that was one of the most heartening things I think anyone said to me over those 2 weeks.
Excellent, because I know it must have been terribly devastating to have seen it all destroyed so quickly. Tanya, just to finish off, after the demolition, of course, people thought the camps had gone, but of course they haven't gone, have they? They're very much here. And what is the level of need that remains?
The level of need is still significant. There are thousands of people who remain in the unofficial part of the camp, the northern section in Calais, but also the people who are in the government appointed areas, the containers, the blue tents. We've still been asked to do distribution for them, so we're still providing sleeping bags, we're still providing shoes, clothes, toiletries, basics that people need to survive, and there's got to be at least 4,000 plus in the camp now. That's also to Dunkirk, which has got a couple of thousand, and now there's smaller camps that are springing up along the coast, and we're trying to make sure that we can work with them to make sure that they are also getting the basic needs that they need to survive. So we still very much need donations.
More than ever, really.
Great. Well, thank you three very much, but I know that you're just three of hundreds, would you say, over the last few months? Hundreds.
Between October and January.
How many?
3,000 between October and January.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how many since.
Absolutely
Those
phenomenal.
are registered volunteers.
Yeah.
Registered
So our thanks to you all for what you've done to keep some of the most desperate people in the world with a roof over their heads and some hot food in their stomachs. Thanks.
Couldn't just stand by and let it happen.
Thank you.